What's this computer? Here on the screen. Right, so can you all see my screen yet?
No, not yet. Yeah, got it.
Sweet. So this one's a relatively good one to look at. So obviously I know it's already played out, but obviously I've come on a different feed, so we'll start from pretty much the basics and of structure, and basically all I'm going to cover is structure, imbalances, liquidity. So obviously, and liquidity sweeps including that, and then obviously reasons why I would look in a certain area and things like that. So straight away, obviously the first thing I'm sort of like I've come onto this and I would notice would be structure. So I'm on the 4 hour at the minute, and just move this window box up and see. So 4 hour structure straight away is obviously we've got a high here. Obviously this breaks lows, so structured breaking downwards here would be along these sort of like lines. No, nothing too deep there. Sorry, ignore that, guys. I'm going a bit tighter in. Although that is a structure, that's a big structure. We've got obviously it's downtrending from May time. But when we get into this, obviously the higher time frame structure, we have an inside structure on that as well. So we've got, does that take that low? Yeah, we have. So from there, we've got a pullback there, pullback into that, and then we get a little break up here, down here. Very small, but it does happen. So that's a new overall low. So with that being said of structure, obviously we're downtrending heavily for what the best part of 6, 7 months, something like that, on the highes. So this is this is our current overall high. Obviously, this is now the new low, depending on what happens after this. So with I'm just going to do this a different color. Obviously, we'd then anticipate that it's going to come somewhere high up in this price action, ideally, and then obviously we could be looking at new lower lows, which I will cover orange just for the purpose of this is the projected next swing or the anticipated. Obviously, it might not do that. It's just if we continue the structure, that's a very high possibility. So just going to draw this just as a guide for that. So this is the GAN box. I don't use it too often, but I very much like obviously because this is the swing. Obviously, this is the pullback as such. We've come high into this top 25%, which is ideal for longer term sells. So that's basically the higher time frame structure of it at the minute. Obviously, I've not included all this in the structure because this is the low, this is the high, the high before it pulls back. This is the high and until this low's taken, which it just does here, which then confirms this as the high. So obviously it's coming back up high into that. Obviously, because it's been confirmed because it does take the low. So from there, obviously it's slowly trending upwards from this low when it does make a low. I wouldn't recommend taking buys from around here until we start seeing decent breaks above highs like this at least. This would be like maybe a 15-minute high I would class it as, which obviously you can see it probably does play out as well. So break above here comes and mitigates the order block that comes and that takes this high effectively. But that's not the actual trade I want to get into, but a good reason for point of interest. We as we are trending upwards, we obviously we've done structure now and we're very high into this previous swing. So roughly the top 25% is about there, or thereabouts. Get a touch smaller. So now that we've got a structure, I'm just going to make that thinner so it's not in my way as well. So we're high into the in the previous swing. Now it's time we would come on and start looking for liquidity. So I'm not actually going to cover what liquidity is in this. I'm just going to effectively mark it up. There's videos in the group of what liquidity is. So decent trend line here. Putting magnet back on. So one touch, two touch, three touch, and then we get a sweep into roughly somewhere where we're looking for. And I believe that really does fill a nice imbalance. So let's see what that's tapped into. So obviously we're on to a bit of imbalance as well. Well, so just going to go to the 5 just so I'm not too far away. So as you can see, I mean, it taps into this order block here, but there's a lovely bit of imbalance here. So my mark would have been somewhere around there, imbalance on the 10-second. As long as it obviously doesn't take the wick high, it's not a break to the upside, so it's just under, obviously, as you can see. So it's filled something we like in the high of the sweep up of the trend line. I'm just going to get to it. So a bar replay from there. So from there, so we've swept liquidity, a decent trend line here. We've mitigated a lovely imbalance in here. Obviously, I would be checking to make sure there's none just higher than what this is, obviously, and depending on the type of entry model you would like. So at this point, I would be then going, it's filled an imbalance. I'm jumping straight onto the 1 minute time frame, and marking out where I want my 1 minute change of character to be. So breaker structure, whichever one you want to use. So obviously I think I would be a lot further down here. I don't particularly see anything too high up, so maybe consider this one. It's got 3 or 4 candles in the same direction, but I think ultimately I'd be a bit further down here maybe. So set my 1 minute breaker structure, change the character down here initially. Just double checking this because I believe the other feed I used was slightly different to this, so this might knacker me up, but it is what it is. So I'll play some candles from there and see if we get what we want to get. Just remove that. I'm not going to go too fast. So can I just ask you guys, does that make sense so far?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no
Yeah,
worries. Yeah.
just got to keep saying it over and over. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Well, it's obviously for you guys and obviously the guys that will watch it back on YouTube or whatever, if I probably recommend to watch it a few times so it makes a bit of you maybe take a bit more information every time it gets watched, I guess.
I find deciding where the change of character is I don't like to. I always feel like, oh no, it's going to be too far. It's going to be too far. It's never going to do it.
Yeah, so I mean
But
this
it's
this
the
is
right
what it
place. Yeah,
yeah, I mean I always recommend if you're unsure because I mean on this one it's quite I suppose it's a bit easier because it's all just one directional push. This is one of my rules. So like a prolonged period of price action becomes a one single structure.
yeah,
Obviously, I said that there is three candles in this. It's that maybe meets me rules
yeah,
technically, but I mean, if I was to draw a channel, I mean, structure's always. I say it all the time. It's probably the hardest thing to actually learn because although there's only two or three rules that I use, it's it's the one that's difficult to actually work out, and you've just got to spend time sort of like trying to figure it out. So obviously, I'm assuming this one will play out because I played it out earlier, but
yeah,
um, like if obviously it took me probably a couple of years of figuring out a structure and looking at it on every trade to weed out going, I don't class these as pullbacks, I don't class these as pullbacks. So and you sort of
yeah,
start realizing that all my losses was coming from ones where I go, that maybe is a structure point, but obviously
nah,
if you zoom out, it just becomes more and more, well, a bit more evident, I guess. So
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah, like I say, I think I say it week in, week out. I'm terrible at explaining structure. There's only two, I think there's three rules. So a prolonged period becomes a structure. So obviously this is sort of heading downwards slowly in prolonged way. So wherever this goes now, probably classes as a structure. Must have a minimum of three or four candles in the same direction to class as, but obviously the previous rule sort of overrules that. Um,
yeah,
and the high and the low is valid until one or the other is broken. So until that's broken or that's rebroken, this is still the structure. So obviously a pullback and then a continuation would effectively confirm this was right. But it is difficult. But like they're the three odd rules I use. But because price
yeah,
doesn't travel because it doesn't travel in straight lines, it's
yeah,
always going to be difficult to actually go, no, I don't count that as one. Yes, I do count. You
yeah.
know, it's just an experience thing, I guess.
I find I can overthink it a bit, whereas actually it's quite obvious, really, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, you can always, I mean, if you really struggle, I mean, you can if you jump to the five, it makes it a little bit easier to spot that one. You know,
Plain as day, yeah,
obviously you've got several red ones there, so that's definitely a pullback for me. You
yeah,
know, and then I think, like I say, zooming out helps a bit. You would always err on the side of caution, so
yeah,
obviously it's coming to these lows on the 1 minute that was on the 1 minute, sort of about there now. But if you was always overcautious, you went, no, no, I'm definitely going the fair option. If it breaks this, even if this is a 15-minute low or an hour or two or four, like you've got a better break of structure at that point because it's a higher time frame. So
yeah,
I would always say to err on the side of caution in your favour.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's that. I'll get back on with this anyway.
Thanks.
Obviously, this is dead boring, but waiting's just part of it. Get it? Right. time frame or two. Go 5. Oh, there we go. There we go. That's the one. So from there, obviously, we've now had a breaker structure. Now it's time to come and find an entry. So obviously this is obviously the low. Soon, obviously, I would set an alert just below this low anyway, just as a. I'll probably set my alert there as I'm if I was in a live situation. So alert's gone off. Just delete them. So now it's time to come on, find an entry, and pretty much I'm dropping straight to the seconds really. So obviously I don't recommend it for everybody. Um, obviously it can be done on the minute. It's just yeah, I don't recommend it for everybody. So if you've got like if you're fairly new, I'd recommend not going below the minute, but obviously with experience and things like that, we can get somewhere closer on the seconds. So um, so we're at the high here, so it's filled the imbalance. So we're now just looking for a real nice sort of imbalance fill to be filled. So we've got possibly something like this. Come down. That'd be nice, but it's filled by this. So obviously, so I'm just going to go back a touch just to explain. So imbalance is being created between obviously the high, the first imbalance being filled, and the breaker structure. So I would be looking for the imbalance to be filled between anything in that price action. So obviously this is where it breaks. So I don't care about imbalances that have previously been filled on its way down. It's from this point here is where I'm then interested in the imbalances above that. So that's something to bear in mind. Any previously filled ones. Obviously there was a real nice looking one somewhere around here. I think it was that one there maybe gets filled. It's irrelevant. It's done. It's not live anymore. So that's obviously we're taking a note of. So obviously I'll get back to the seconds. So we've got that, but that's possibly spread out starting. Yeah, that's possibly spread. So I don't know if I'm too happy with that one, but we'll see. So we've got that one's filled. obviously once I've done like filtering through all these imbalances and things, that one's filled. Once I've marked all the imbalances, I'm sort of happy with anyway. I will come back and effectively check on the higher time frame to make sure I'm sort of happy with where it sort of where everything sort of is. So um, obviously, I recommend starting higher up and working your way down. Possibly that one. Get filled here. It's filled. This one fills that. It's nice. Obviously, this is the one that possibly causes the actual breaker structure. So it's a good one. We got them. That's pretty much all the. No, is there three? There'll be three. The three areas, the main areas where I'd concentrate on as a possible entry. So I really like these two because they are obviously the green line is the breaker structure point. So these are obviously really close. I also like this quite a sharpish push up here, sharpish push down. Got the same here, real big push down. Um, this one not so much. Just check that on the 5 seconds. Maybe. I definitely prefer these two, I think. See these candles here, these two are huge. Obviously, I know they're directly above the breaker structure line as well. So um I mean I'll be more inclined for this one purely because it's just above the other one and I do like it. So if I was to put my money on it, that would be the one. I'm just going to pop back up the time frames just to make sure that it's in an area that I'm happy with. So I'll discount that one because it don't really lead to anything, don't really take anything. And these are, while they're a possibility, I would deal with what's in front of me first. So pending would be on that one possibly. So we've had all of our confirmations. So
Why did you like that one the mostly?
so obviously this green line here is the breaker structure line.
Yeah,
So this is possibly possible. Obviously, there's an imbalance here that gets filled, so
yeah,
I'd move further down. But this
yeah,
is where the imbalance from the bit that directly causes the break.
yeah, cool.
So obviously, I did mark this one just below, but with this being just above it, I would consider this one. While if I preferred this one, it was a bigger push,
Yeah.
but this was just above it. So if it was to come up here, why wouldn't it just fill that as well, sort of thing? So
Whereas the ones above, it's filled mostly, so that's
yeah,
kind of indication it's less likely to go up. That
yeah,
one. Yeah, okay, cool.
yeah. So
Thanks.
but yeah, that's confirmations done. That's pretty much the trade done. So a breakdown from the 4 hour with structure. Obviously, we've taken into consideration imbalances, liquidity, um, everything like that. So now we would move on to where we would sort of like expect it to go. So obviously targets are majorly important. So again, we would look for sort of structure swings again or liquidity. general things to target. Um, so let's see if we can find targets. Obviously, where have I drawn that? So I was going closer. The overall aim, I guess, would be. I don't want that at 1.4 either. I think that's a touch small for the pair. Um, about let's do 3. Let's do plenty. Can't remember what the spreads are on this, so but I'm sure it's not that much. So wider. So obviously, because we was talking structure early, we was saying there's a possibility of a new lower low. I wouldn't expect anybody to hold this. So that would be maybe the overall target. But obviously we would look for possible targets be a lot sooner than that, to be fair. So try and find some liquidity points and things like that. See if we've got anything we can spot. Uh, possible trend line here. Trend line, yeah. So we've got that possibility. See anything else? Possibly that, which would line up with a new lower low. Um, I don't think it's got that far yet, but I'm not 100% sure. And then if we obviously from the 4 hour time frame swings, obviously we are heavily downtrending. Inside of the 4 hour, we will have another substructure. So obviously I'll stay on the 4 hour, but this is probably what I would class as my 15-minute structure. So got a low, high, low, high, low, high. So let's do that one purple. And then obviously we've got these structure swings on the what I would class as my 15 as possible areas. So first TP would be somewhere in and around this low here, I guess, because obviously it could. So we draw that on. So based on structure again, we've created a new high. Oh, new high. So we would then anticipate or hope for a break below this because then we've got because this is trending upwards, we would then want to see, first of all, a break of the 15. So ideally, we would break under here, but there is a good chance that obviously price could come and just fill an imbalance in here, take a trend line maybe or whatever it creates on its way down. So first TP would be somewhere in and around this low. It might be a touch higher, depending on what it wants to do, but it could effectively come fill in some and then create a new high. So first take profit would always be somewhere in the bottom 25-ish% of this leg here. Should it break that, then obviously I'm just going to change that. Now I'll put a new color in it. If we break down below, we could easily pull back. Obviously, if this is the right entry, if it's the highest imbalance that I'd want to see filled, then obviously it could pull back and then continue down. Like I say, to take trend lines and things like that, and obviously depending on what it creates on its on its way. But it all depends on if it breaks these structure points. I'll turn that one blue. So they're the sort of two possibilities on the 15-minute time frame structure. But obviously, the 4 hour is the higher the time frame is still bearish until say this high would be broken, which obviously is a possibility. But so I'll leave the whole bar on for now, but because I can't remember how far down it goes, but just as these would be sort of like TP areas that I'd be looking to take. Um, so, and I don't even know if I've got the right entry. So let's see. If I got it wrong, this is not getting uploaded. So there you go. I think that's
I noticed that they're always perfect, these trades.
well, yeah. It's
I'm just
it,
teasing. It's all right.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, but yeah. Obviously, that has tagged it in. It was relatively quick on this occasion, but it's done what we needed. It's filled the imbalance that we were looking to fill. So that's that, and then obviously it's just a case of seeing what happens after that. Obviously, I said I'd want it to break lows.
No, you've gone very quietly.
Hello?
That's better.
Yeah.
What, that one?
Can
Yeah.
hear you now, mate.
What the hell?
You spent 5 years and 5 minutes, 10 minutes even drawing on the chart quietly. It was quite soporific, quite calm.
Oh, yeah, shit. Do you know, I don't know what's happening. I think I've got a button on my headphones that can
Okay.
disengages the microphone, but I haven't touched it, so I wonder if it's like
I
flicking
was going
itself
to tell
off.
you, but I thought you were just concentrating.
No. So what was sort of like the last things I was saying? Because I'll redo it now quick.
It was a little while ago. You were talking about um, that we talked about the first TPs.
Yeah,
It was before that big week there.
yeah, yeah,
It was
yeah.
before that triggered.
Right, okay. So obviously we covered TPs basically then. So obviously
Yeah.
trend line here. Obviously there's structure lows, which obviously I said was I think I had this on. So from this 15-minute low to the high up here, to this point up here. So if obviously the 4 hours bearish, so the blue structure's down
Yeah.
overall. Purple's currently up, which is this will be my 15-minute structure. So obviously this one here is possibly what could happen as well. But if this doesn't retrace and take obviously the high, but it does take this low, then obviously the other possibility is that it's effectively it's done this, done that. So if it takes this low here, then obviously we've got a possibility of something like this happening. So we have 4 hour down, 15 minutes currently up, but until obviously we're hoping for a shift, a 15-minute shift to the downside. So this is why I'd always recommend saying that we would at least do maybe break even or take profits or end the trade somewhere around this structure. So the smaller structure. Obviously, the 15 makes up the 4 hour. Um, and for me, even when I hold bigger trades like this, these structure lows are this is where it'll prat around for a bit. So, I mean, at the minute, it might well be making liquidity, and the liquidity might drive it down. So maybe tomorrow or within this night, obviously it might create a new touchdown here when it market opens, and then the sweep drives it into a breaker structure, which is a possibility. But obviously there was a trend line sweep here, so there is a real possibility that it's swept, filled an imbalance in this, and it was just going to continue to the upside now. But obviously that remains to be seen. So if it doesn't take the low and then it takes the high, we might actually see, assuming that 4 out that it wants to stay bearish, obviously because the higher time frame is bearish, it might continue up higher into here and then do this exact same thing again. Obviously, you'd want it to fill a major imbalance. So let's save as imbalance just in there. It might want to come up, then do another 1 minute shift to the downside, and then we eventually get the 15-minute breaker structure. I've obviously with lows being taken, obviously, so even inside the 15, there'll be a 1 minute structure. So this is possibly the 1 minute. So obviously, I'm only doing it roughly. Say like that's the 1 minute there. I'll change the color in a minute so you can see. I know one was up here, but this might be 5 or something then. So this low here gets broken, so possibly a 5 minute change of character, which is probably what causes this big pullback to the this was the second entry, I believe, on it. So we've got possibly something. This obviously this is a key area of what's going on because we've got a 15-minute low, and
Yeah.
this 5 minute is either going to continue bearish because the 5 minutes now down bearish. So
You
it's
know,
either,
the change of character we talked about earlier, that's really clear on that 4 hour chart.
yeah, 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 yeah. So I mean that's probably I'll do that one yellow so you can sort of see. So this is, I mean, obviously, I spoke about it a bit last week about having multiple time frames, structures running. So 4 hours bearish, we're high up in the 4 hour. I would love to see a 15-minute break under here because then if we do get a 15, there's a good chance we get a pull back into something in here for another continue with a sell. Um, Obviously, if it doesn't, if this doesn't happen, then I believe it will come higher into here and then maybe do it. I'd have to check the imbalances, but it all pivots on this sort of point here at the minute. So 15-minute low, doing it in here. 5 minutes now bearish, 1 minute's bearish because it's trending downwards. So we'd want the 15 to follow suit, and then if the 15 follows suit, the hour or the 2 or the 4 will obviously is already in line. So this is why being being high in a previous 4 hours high for sells is very probable. We just want to wait for the other time frames to align. So
Yeah.
5 and 1 is in alignment, 15's not, but the 15's bigger than the 5 and the 1, so that holds the more power. Obviously, we can catch trades just off the 1 minute. This is the very aggressive early entry, I guess. Possibly the earliest entry if it does continue down, because it's if this is the turning point for the 4 hour low, 4 hour high, lower high, then this is after, with it being the 1 minute as the confirmation only. Like I say, this is possibly the earliest safe entry you'll get. But then that means obviously you've got to ride the storm of possibly holding through 15-minute breaks of structure and then obviously 4 hours. So um, I think that about covers it. Obviously, if there's anything about that that doesn't like you're struggling with at the minute, obviously let me know and I'll cover it now for you. Anything? Do,
Completely, it's just practice for me.
yeah. Does obviously these multiple time frames running make sense to you at least? I know obviously it's difficult to understand, but
No, it makes sense. It's a personal thing. I'm not good at reading very busy charts,
yeah,
but I get it. Yeah.
yeah,
It's just it's the same simple strategy when you look at everything to be overbought in the different time frames, then you know
yeah,
it's probably a good sell. Yeah.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
consequences adding up. Yeah, I get it.
yeah. What about the other lads in before I call it there?
Yeah, get it on the high time frame. Yeah, because it obviously keeping in the where the direction's going, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
You can still lose track, can't you, if you come down too low?
yeah. So
Mm.
obviously the lower the break, the least obviously the lower the time frame, the least weight it holds. So the 1 minute will break structure far more than the 15, and the 15 will break far more than the 4 hour, and the 4 will do more than the daily, so on. So obviously when we get a cleanish 4 hour structure, obviously it holds a fair bit of weight because obviously if we think about this move, obviously if we just take this area into consideration, like that was August, mid-August time, so effectively we've waited until then for this move to possibly play out for the continue of a sell. Obviously, it's been bullish. This is a pullback, obviously, because until it takes the high, it's a pullback. I would class it as. But Yeah, like structures, I said it earlier, it's so difficult, but I suppose the best way to do it is if you zoom out, these become big legs. If you zoom in a bit further, you can start to see, say, the 15. If you zoom in even closer on a lower time frame, you can start to see there's a lot more going on in, say, the 5 and the 1s. So each structure is running simultaneously, but if you can map them out and draw them out, then you can start to see these areas where, as long as it fills imbalances, takes liquidity. Obviously, we get a 1 minute break here, we get a 5 minute break here. So, two possible entries in the same sort of area because the 1 minute shift happens here with the entry. A 5 then gives a possible another one. Would anticipate if the breaks the 15, it will possibly come into in here maybe, or whatever's created in this between when the market opens and when it breaks. It might literally pull up a little bit, and then absolutely slam through it and leave an imbalance in here for it to come and mitigate and then continue. But like I say, you've got multiple time frames running. 4 hours big blue and this orange one. Obviously, purple's my 15, 5. Obviously, I'm not going to show you the one because it means changing the time frame drastically, but you sort of get the idea. So you maybe include each of these candles as a 1 minute structure, I guess. But yeah, structure, liquidity, and imbalances is pretty much all you need to. Obviously, if you can place it outright, if you can do the order of what you're looking for, obviously draw structure, draw liquidity. Liquidity is always looking to be taken, so we wouldn't want to take a trade before liquidity is taken. Otherwise, you will obviously become liquidated. So you would wait for that to be taken, fill an imbalance that we're really happy with, and then obviously start seeing breaks to the downside and things like that. So if I'll call it there, guys, anyway. But if there's anything that you can, obviously, if you watch it back or if you think of something when we come off the live, just give us a shout and we'll I'll try and cover anything that I can for you.
Thanks, Lee.
All right, buddy. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
See you later.
Bye bye. Have a good week.
Same, Joe.